Welcome to the show.
So,
what is the destiny of Western Australia?
Good question, Chris.
What is
So, we are talking about WAxit now. So last week, the Liberal Party of Western Australia held a state conference where they put forward a motion to secede from from the federal government
from
Australia.
Traitors.
But at this conference, they debated it fiercely, and then they said they want to become financially independent, but under the rule of the Australian government still. So that's what was put forward. And that was voted on, and it actually passed, 89 to 73.
Right.
So they wouldn't be a different country.
They wouldn't be a different country.
Aww.
That was the original proposal.
That would be cooler.
So the state president of the Liberal Party in Western Australia is a known secessionist. Yeah, I'm struggling there.
Yeah. He just loves seceding from stuff.
I know how you feel.
It's a soft C.
Yeah. Needs Sarah,
Yeah.
But essentially what they need is they're putting together a committee, and they want to, by July 2018, they want to present to the State Council about a plan of how they could do this.
Right.
And essentially, you probably ask, why do they want to do this? What's going on?
Hey, why do they want to do this?
Good question, Chris. So essentially, they've been unhappy about numerous things. There's a sentiment in Western Australia that the East Coast doesn't really care about
the West Coast.
Doesn't care about the West Coast.
East Coast is the best.
They say East Coast for life.
That is a valid sentiment.
They're in a weird time zone. They're 5 hours away. It's a big flight.
It is a big flight.
But then also...
Fun fact.
Yeah.
Western Australia, you go there, it's 5 hours. You come back, it's a 4-hour trip.
Oh, that's right. Because of the tailwinds?
Yeah.
With the wind.
Which sounds made up, right? But it's crazy true. It's so much quicker the other way.
It's very consistent, I guess, going that way.
Like every
Coming
time.
back.
Yeah.
West to East, yeah.
That's a fun fact with Ali. Back to dip.
Back to that. So they're unhappy about the share of GST. For every dollar made that they generate in GST, they get 34 cents back.
Where's the rest go?
So it's redistributed to the states, and they do it on a basis of about essentially social equity. So they look at the state's capacity to generate its own revenue and the number of people they have there. So obviously Western Australia is mineral rich. Mineral resources are very, very high, and they've got a strong export of that. So they're classed to have a very high ability to generate their own revenue.
So all the GST from all the states comes in, and then they're like, all right, you get this much.
You get this. That's right.
Okay. And they're like, Western Australia, you don't get much because you're making...
You can do your own thing, right? And then you look at somewhere like Northern Territory or Tasmania, who may get $5 back for every dollar they generate. So it's a big difference.
Yeah.
$5 back for every dollar they generate.
Yeah.
That's wild.
There's not a lot of people.
There's not a lot of people there. There's not a lot of trade they would generate. They don't have the resources, the minerals.
The bulk of this GST is coming from Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland.
Yeah.
That's all the money.
Yeah.
There's a smaller state, smaller population, less GST, but it can fluctuate more in terms of how much they get back or how much they give.
Right. So
It seems larger.
Why haven't they adjusted it?
Well, it's actually under review to be reformed.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they did it in a per capita, New South Wales would probably get 1/3 of the GST that's generated, and then Western Australia would probably get 11% or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess essentially, they say it's about the GST, but it's probably more about they feel left out. They feel hard done by. No one cares about them.
That's got nothing to do with the tax, right? Doesn't everyone just not care about Western Australia?
Yeah, that's how they feel.
How many people are in Western Australia?
I don't know.
There's a lot. It's a big place.
It is
We'll
huge.
look it up. Keep talking.
Fact check.
So it's interesting that... So I think the couple interesting points of this. So this is a federal... So the federal government is Liberal. obviously, and this is a Liberal Party who are not in power. And their leader of the opposition, the leader of the Liberal Party, came out and said, look, it's unlikely that this is going to happen. This would actually succeed.
What would it take to happen? I'm assuming they'd have to do a vote in Western Australia.
Yeah, I think so.
And
but
then need to... Would we get a say in whether they leave?
Probably not.
Because they're taking a lot of resources with them.
With them, that's right. But the interesting thing is that this has been around for a long time. This is not the first time this has happened.
They're like the Quebec of Australia.
Yeah. So before, like,
I get that joke.
Western Australia were actually pretty reluctant to even join the Federation back in 1901. So in the preamble to the Constitution, they're not even mentioned. So I think they had a vote after that was drafted and finalised to say, yes, we want to join in. So then they got a part of the Constitution after that.
I guess there was a time that they said no. They had a vote and said no.
So then in 1933, they had a referendum of the state saying we want to leave. And they all voted.
And it passed.
Yeah, they said, yes, we want to leave.
Jeez.
And then...
Did you say 1933?
1933.
So this has been a very long time coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's even more history, but essentially then it went back to the federal government for like 18 months and nothing happened, and they said,
They just said
it's not
no.
going to happen.
Nah.
And then 1974, there was a political party that was formed by an iron ore mogul.
Yeah,
I
classic.
can't remember his name. But essentially he was upset about the tariffs that were being enforced for the exports that they were doing.
Right.
And they didn't win a seat in the vote in Parliament, in their political
But that's like,
state.
who likes tariffs?
state
Like,
policy.
Yeah.
True, but they're there for a reason, right?
I don't mind a good tariff.
I heard the iron or the minerals royalties, they're set by the state.
Yeah.
So the state government gets to set its own royalties, and they get lots of money from that. So that's why the GST calculation, which is really complicated, goes, okay, they're making this much money from that, so they don't need as much GST
Yeah.
to fund their schools and their hospitals and stuff. They actually do so many like calculations. I was reading about it. It was like they study this for like their full-time job.
It's a
is
full
looking
modelling
this in.
kind of equate.
Model every single
Yeah.
possible thing in their policy that they need to do and need to cover. They project forward how much money they're going to get from their minerals and from all that stuff, and then they work out, okay, they're going to get this much GST. And apparently Western Australia gamed that system
Yep.
during the Labor years.
Okay.
So apparently before the mining boom, they actually got more money back from the GST for like 60 years or something like that.
Yeah.
On the DL?
Before GST, I guess it was something else, but they basically got supported by New South Wales and Victoria because they're the biggest economies in Australia. So Western Australia actually benefited from the relationship, but then the mining boom happened and they could suddenly generate quite a lot of money. So they were getting less than before because the calculation takes that into account.
Yeah.
And they made it worse. They intentionally made it worse because they know this is how the GST thing works, right? The Labor government brought in their mining tax, and their mining tax kind of worked like, okay, the state government's paying like a royalty, like charging you a royalty. The Commonwealth government will give you that royalty back, like a rebate, but we're going to tax your profits.
Yep.
So what the Western Australian government did was, okay, well, we know the Commonwealth government's going to cover the royalty, so it's not going to tick off the miners if we put the royalty up.
Yep.
So they put it up heaps. So they were getting heaps in royalties, and they knew that what was going to happen when they did that is their GST revenue would go down.
Yep.
Because they knew we're suddenly getting all this money from mining, we know that means that the GST that they give us is going to go down. They knew that was going to happen. That was the previous government. So the current government has inherited the terrible GST situation from the previous government, and the mining boom's kind of fallen off a little bit. So they're getting less revenue from that, and they're getting less money from the GST. So there's a kind of combination of two things, but it's kind of self-inflicted as well.
It does sound like something needs to change, though.
Well, the problem is it's not a very diversified economy, right? They're very reliant on the mining industry. It generates about 35% of their wealth.
What about canola oil?
They do have a lot of
Swimming with the whale
wheat,
sharks?
wheat and everything there, don't
Yeah.
they? But that only employs about 7% of the workers in Western Australia.
Right.
So the question is, if this did happen and WA did leave as an independent financial state, would that be a good thing? Like,
I feel like they'd be stuffed if the mining came off the boil.
Yeah, because they're so reliant on that iron ore price, which is pretty low at the moment.
Yeah.
I believe.
It seems like
And
it'd be worse for them than anything.
Yeah, because it's funny because if you look at it, And this is what commentators say, that if you can't take the good without the bad. So if they did leave, they'd have to take some of the debt that Australia has, and we're about $500 billion in debt currently. So Western Australia's economy is not doing well. They're about 40 billion. I think their budget came out today, actually. They're about $40 billion in debt, and they have about a $4 billion deficit every year.
Oh, jeez.
So their credit rating has been pushed down.
Wow.
And essentially that means you pay more interest,
Yeah.
which is not a good thing.
So this was raised by the leader of the opposition in WA.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a political move. Like, he's like a stunt. He wants to get some attention. He wants to
I
say,
think so.
I really love Western Australia. This isn't fair. Look at what they're doing to us. Vote for me.
It's about it's creating noise, right?
Yeah.
And it's the voters looking at them and go, oh, yeah, we're upset, we're not getting enough money, we're being
This
hard done
guy's
by.
gonna
We
help
should.
me
I
out.
don't know when their next election is, but
Probably gives them a bit more leverage
Yep.
when they're negotiating this, because they know that this review of the GST is coming up. If
Yep.
they kick up a fuss now, they might
It's
get
true.
a little more consideration.
that's true.
I feel for the current government, because they didn't really
Do much.
the royalty increase thing that the previous government did. So the previous government got all the credit because they had heaps of money to spend, and they spent heaps of money. But now the next government gets stuffed over by that strategy.
Thanks a lot.
Turns out we're not in the top 10 of the most debt of a country, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
United States is the most, which
Yeah, which is
You got the
huge.
States, you got Greece, you got Japan.
Yeah.
Germany, France, United Kingdom, Italy, Brazil, Canada, Russia.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that as a percentage or just amount of debt?
GDP debt as percent of GDP 2010.
It's a percentage.
No, but that wasn't the order
Japan
you were
should be
reading.
number one then.
Yeah.
I think they're at like 200 or something.
Japan was number
Recession
one
for years,
for
hasn't it?
the other one.
Percentage.
Yeah, percentage of GDP.
Percentage. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be about 40% or something like that.
Yeah.
I think our GDP is about $1 trillion.
Good GDP.
So if WA did do this, like they would take on more debt, which would the credit rating would go even down further, and then they'd have to pay higher interest rates, and they're in a deficit, so they're not,
Yeah, and then if their mining gets even with
Yeah,
us,
that's right.
they're
They're very reliant on that one iron ore price.
I have a pleb question,
Yeah.
so forgive me.
You gonna post it to us?
I don't mean pleb like that. I mean pleb like stupid person. We know.
That's what they
Like
mean.
plebeian.
Too. Yeah.
Is it?
No. Oh, yeah, kind of. Don't worry.
In the Latin.
So,
Yeah.
you said pay higher interest rates. Who do they pay that to?
Whoever they've borrowed the money
Borrowed
from.
money from.
Usually big banks and stuff will have
Yeah.
a certain percentage of
China.
bonds. They're issued as government bonds. They're
Right.
quite like safe investment because you just get interest regularly. But you can lend money. You essentially buy a bond off the government, and it's like, we're going to pay you back this much over this many years.
But it doesn't seem like anyone's paying things back, right? Because we're
No,
getting
they
a
are.
deficit.
They are.
No, they are. That's
Okay.
part of that. That'll be part of their budget, is servicing all their debt.
Get into surplus.
So yeah, they brought out their budget today, and they've made, there's the winners and losers. They always have. So essentially, WA is a loser. So they need to most households, etc.
What else is
need to
new?
tighten their spending essentially, and big businesses. So they're really targeting areas to try and bring that down because they're in a bit of a hole at the moment.
Aren't they losing their rugby team too? Or was
Yeah, the rugby
they
team's
are.
been,
the force?
but they're challenging that. They've actually gone to. They're going to take it to the High Court,
Yeah, they
something
want
like that. Or
all
there's
the
a
money
Senate
they've
hearing
invested
today.
back.
Twiggy Forest is going to start his own rugby.
Yeah.
Twiggy.
I guess if they did become their own country, though, like Australia could probably win some kinds of sports. Right? We'd play them every year in cricket or rugby. We'd probably
turn
win a
into an
game in rugby
international-
or something.
Would they have
That'd be
to
ridiculous. There's no way to
It'd be
It
so
won't
annoying.
happen.
Yeah, it'd be so annoying having to get a passport to go to Perth.
build a wall? Is there a fence?
I don't think we wouldn't need part. It'd just be
No.
silly.
We'd
It'd
need
be
a wall.
ridiculous thing.
Yeah, but like as Chris said, this is just to create noise. Do you know what I mean?
Pretty smart.
Get
They
attention.
did get a lot of attention for it.
I mean, we're talking
Wax
about
it.
Wax it.
Hashtag wax it.
Pretty catchy. Catchy little...
Hashtag wax it.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, he's already there.
jeez.
He's
He's
already
bared
done it.
himself.
Hashtag waxed it.
Okay. So let's get serious because we're about to talk about a serious topic.
Yeah.
Not Syria, though.
No.
So,